Welcome, Wildcat Nation. I'm your host, Carter Knake, bringing you yet another episode of PodCats. Joining us today is the head coach of the men's volleyball team here at Culver-Stockton College, head coach Devin Walker. Thanks for joining us today, Coach.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, it's always great to have another coach on. Love to hear kind of more about your experience and kind of how you got to the Hill. More importantly, I mean, it's only been 216 days since you've been officially hired on. So kind of putting that into your perspective there. So kind of just give us a little bit about yourself and anything the audience or wider world should know about yourself.
Well, Devin Walker, like you said, just got hired not terribly too long ago. Know what else you want to hear?
Anything about your college career? I mean, you did play against the Wildcats back in Heart of America Conference action back in the day. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that and kind of the progress that you've made through your coaching career to get here.
Okay. So I did do undergrad at Missouri Valley College Conference School. Always hated playing here, actually. But it was always a good match. After that, taught for a year and decided that wasn't for me, for music education from 4th grade through seniors. So that was a very wide range. Also did music therapy on the side for the state and for disabled older people and the younger as well. And really enjoyed that. Definitely would love to get back into that world sometime, just not now. Then I went back to my alma mater, do a GA position, and then went to Central Methodist, another conference school, only on the women's side. They only have a women's team. Won conference championship there, finished at nationals, the highest that they've ever finished, 10th, which was really nice. Hopefully I'll get a ring here from conference sometime in my career. Then I went to Stevens College as a head coach, all women's school in Columbia, Missouri, the previous year, and now I'm here. Learned about this position from the women's coach who I also went to school with, Lauren Eldridge. But you know, I've always been wanting to get back into the men's game just because the speed, the recruiting, it's all a different game than the women's game, and it's just more of my style, I guess.
So is there kind of a difference in how you are coaching this men's team, because it's kind of a little bit of a different experience than kind of what you just came off of?
A little bit, you know. I think there was a lot of emotions at Stevens, taking over a program kind of in the same boat as the men's program here. You know, there's potential, and you know, just really having someone to drive that potential forward consistently is the same thing that we're doing here. So it's we'll say the returners are a little bit more of an emotional group than I would have expected for men's volleyball. But I guess it's really just been kind of like a twofold year from last year, from switching from women's to men's. But definitely the speed has changed, you know, picking up more of a, you know, like a power mentality type deal, and then more of a strategic game on the women's side.
Absolutely. I'm not sure what just happened right there with the recording, but we're going to hopefully just be able to go on. So, you know, can you kind of tell us about how your experience as a player kind of translated to you as a coach now?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So my first couple of years, I had a coach who did not recruit me. The coach who recruited me had left 3 days before the season, the previous year. So I had already signed and everything, and then he had left that same year to go take a teaching job elsewhere and start a family in a bigger city. So that kind of threw things into perspective for me coming in as a freshman, not really knowing the new coach at all, who was the GA at the time. I just hadn't met him because he was not there on my visit, and I hadn't talked to him in my recruiting process at all. And thankfully, I was, you know, choosing Missouri Valley for academics and athletics as well. My professors there were top level music professors who you could get anywhere in the world at like the highest institutions for music. So I was very, very fortunate to have that, which really just solidified my decision in going there at that time. But just as a player coming in, not knowing the coach, not knowing, what the culture is going to be like, because every coach has, their different philosophy towards things and how they want to see things on the court and how they want to see things off the court and type like that. Um, so I think that was really mentally hard coming in. Thankfully, through my upbringing, I just been able to turn my feelings off and on like a light switch. So it really helped me a lot my freshman year, and I didn't have a great academic freshman year. Um, then I ended up tearing my ACL for the second time, so it was just kind of like a really down year. And then coming back, and the coach at the time wasn't really necessarily. He was the women's coach as well, and he wasn't really necessarily too fond of the men's team. I'll say that, at least from our point of view, um, which could always, be argued the other way. But just as an underclassman, looking for guidance and stuff from upperclassmen and the coach, I just didn't receive that. And then getting a new coach my last 2.5, 2 years, something like that. He just really opened up my eyes to a lot. We got better. The same. We were always good on paper. We just couldn't ever put it together on the court. Then we got the new coach. I mean, the cohesiveness just started to click, and I think we felt more of a sense of belonging just as a team. But that stemmed from the top down from the coach, and that's something that I'm trying to do here as well. I know a lot of the guys loved Karen. She was a great player. She's a wonderful person and a great coach. So it's always hard coming in after an Olympian. So, but I think like I said before, every coach has their different ways of doing things and the culture that they want to build and see succeed. And I'm definitely trying to model what I received from my second college coach. Just because, it was more about on and off the court development. And I 100% appreciated that. And I still talk to him to this day.
Absolutely. And you kind of seeing like the overall level of education coming from both even playing the game, having those practices. I really like that kind of idea and style behind that. So, with that, so coming in to Culver, you kind of led a really, really good Stevens College team. You had multiple All-Americans on that team. Can you tell me how that development process worked and how you're trying to implement that here?
Well, it takes time, and the men's game is a lot more power focused, and the women's game is a lot more strategically inclined. Not that they don't mix; they definitely do mix. Just the men's game is just played at a faster pace, a much faster pace than the women's game. So it's a little bit harder, I would say, to push forward that momentum to get it jump started. But excuse me. But I am definitely a coach, who believes in the training, and we practice good, we're gonna play good. And I always tell the guys, like it's gonna look ugly. You have to in athletics, you have to allow yourself to be a beginner to learn something else. And it's always not as easy, just or like for certain skills, to just drop off something that you've been doing for years and try to learn a new way or a new outlook on things, and just learning just overall game IQ, I guess.
So, kind of going into more of the team aspect now, uh, who would you say so far in your short time have been kind of your go-to leaders for the team?
Well, definitely our two captains this year, Aiden McGuire and Akil Oxley. They may be quieter side of the captains, but I definitely know they have the best interest of the team at heart, and they definitely, always, especially during the games, it's just you see some amazing plays and some togetherness coming from them too specifically. And I think it's been just growing the culture and stuff. It's always important that people see their leaders not only be able to vocalize things, but lead by example as well. And I think that so far, they've done a really good job at modeling that behavior. Just a consistent, always work hard. And that's what I tell the guys every day. I mean, just work hard. If we can just get 1% better, 0.5% better every day, I mean, it's not going to look pretty, but at the end, when we're hitting a stride, at least we're solid on that stride.
Absolutely, and two very good young men on your team. And I was lucky enough to go to your game last night, so very not much on the vocal side, but you can definitely tell it through their actions that
Yeah.
they have a lot of command out there for your team. So also then going into the season, first 4 games, not necessarily what you wanted, having the forfeit game with Park, and then, 3 losses in a row with Maryville, Graceland, and recently with number 11 ranked Missouri Baptist. So what's kind of the message that you're telling your guys right now, kind of just starting the season, not starting on the greatest foot? How are you guys trying to build into having a more competitive season?
Well, first and foremost, like I said earlier, we have to work hard. We are on the smaller side, height-wise and number-wise, in conference, and this is the hardest men's conference for NAIA men's volleyball. And I think, year after year, 6 out of the 10 are in the top 25. And we bring home the most awards for post conference and all that stuff. So it's going to be a dogfight day in and day out. And I think, just them being able to see themselves play hard has been a huge help. And especially the guys who don't necessarily get that playing time as much as the others, them seeing, their teammates out there being able to push through some adversity and stuff is helping just our overall morale on the team and helping us just keep that same effort, of just build on whatever we just left the court with. Tuesday's game against MoBap, we didn't have a good second set, but then, we were able to make a few changes and have a much better competitive third set. Eventually, we did lose in 3, but I tell the guys, it's not a bad loss. And I mean, they're ranked. They've always been ranked. They have a very solid program, and I mean, the program recruits itself. So that's something, that you always have to compete with. And there's so many storied programs in our conference that are just like that, and that they're going to see day in and day out. Every team's going to get their kills. We're going to get our kills. But I think, moving forward, we're always thinking about, how to limit our errors so that we make the opponent beat us. And I think that the errors really hurt us in the first 2 matches. And the last game against MoBap, we probably minimized our errors about almost half, almost by 50% overall through the statistics, whether it be service errors or hitting errors and stuff like that. So, that's just looking at the positive that's coming through the growing pains for us to keep building on has been helpful a little bit. But then, the loss always hurts, but less sting when you can at least look at the positives.
Absolutely. And I mean, what we've seen those first couple of games, I mean, multiple different lineups. Is this team still trying to figure out kind of how to work together, or are you just kind of seeing who's really kind of standing out in practice? What's kind of the vibe with that?
Well, our last game was our first game with a full lineup. So thank you to COVID and a few just the late eligibility decisions. We were able to finally see what our starting 7 would look like, and that was I guess the most competitive set that we had against Mobap was the first set, and that was the starting lineup that we'll probably stick with for most of the season, unless someone else decides that they want to pick it up a little bit more in practice, or they just are, able to provide more energy and just more cohesiveness to the team on the court at the time.
Absolutely. And you definitely saw a very competitive first set against Missouri Baptist. The energy was definitely there. When the Joe Charles Fieldhouse is really up and going, it can be a very difficult place to play. So I can definitely see later on in the season, in those deeper conference matchups, it could be a very electric environment. So I hope that you're ready for that. So you already kind of mentioned it, but there's a lot of tough teams in the Heart to take on. I mean, just to mention, Missouri Baptist, currently ranked number 11. You're going to be playing Ottawa, not technically in our conference, but that's receiving votes that you're playing soon, and you'll play again on the season. Number 4 at Park, William Penn is receiving votes. Graceland's number 1. Missouri Valley is number 8. What kind of toughness does this team need to have to kind of push through and compete against that top talent?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're still finding that answer. I don't just being honest. I don't necessarily understand the mental struggles that student athletes go through nowadays. I don't think that I'm too much older than what I have on the roster, but there's definitely been a huge shift in mental health since I played. My last season was 2017, and I don't think not only us, but I don't think that I saw other teams like there are now struggle with mental health side of things. So we do a lot of talking about mental stability and having resilience and what happens when we're facing adversity. And we've talked also a lot about the only thing that we can control is our response. So it's they're always tough conversations to have, and especially I'm a pretty blunt person, so I don't like to sugarcoat things because it's just not who I am as a person. So it's just that's definitely a learning curve for not only the team but myself as a younger coach. Just trying to understand that part and see where I can fit in within helping them develop as a person. That's eventually going to translate onto the court.
And I think you already mentioned it, but you're looking to educate these young men into more than just athletes. You want them to be scholarly. You want them to be aware of their mental health and everything like that. And I think that's very commendable, especially, we're getting into a new age where it's now even more acceptable to talk about mental health and things like that. So I really commend you for what you're doing with your team. And I hope to see that, future success down the line. And even talking about future things down the line, you actually have, a host of 4 games possibly coming up this weekend, hopefully with weather permitting. So you want to touch on those games that are coming up and kind of the mindset going into those?
Yeah, so this weekend we are at Park University in Kansas City. Parkville, same area. We are still planning on going. Hopefully tomorrow morning we'll hit the road, weather permitting, of course. I think we match up very well with the other teams, the other 4 teams. Ottawa, Kansas is our first game, and then later that day we'll play Morningside. Both of those are from the GPAC, another strong conference as well. And like you said earlier, Ottawa is receiving votes. However, they did play a conference team who's not receiving votes or anything. They played Clark this week, and they got swept. So it's always good to see the conference doing well against other teams. But I mean, that just again speaks to the strength of our conference for men's volleyball. But again, I think we line up athletically very well with them, and hopefully, you know, we can come out with a win, just turn over a few more defensive plays and stuff, and help us get stronger at the net throughout the play. And that will help us get stronger at the net throughout the play, just being able to rely on our second defensive line instead of, you know, trying to do everything by ourselves at the net. That's going to help a lot. And then Morningside, same thing, you know, they've gone against a couple of conference teams and have won and have lost. Do have a smaller squad just like us. So I'm hoping that we can push through that one as well in the same way. And then the second day we will play Ottawa, Arizona, who is ranked. They do have a very, very large squad and height-wise as well. Just a solid all the way around team, and they minimize their errors and they make you play the ball. I think that's going to be our biggest struggle during that match. And we'll finish the tournament off playing Kansas Wesleyan. This is their first year as a program, and just looking to hopefully fine tune some things before we play home against another ranked opponent in Missouri Valley, my alma mater.
So, you know, a couple of tough games coming down the pipeline. So, kind of wrapping things up here, if you could tell your team one thing kind of going into this kind of the bulkier part of your season, what would that be right now?
Well, there's two for sure things that I would say, and they definitely hear it on a daily basis. The first thing, stay disciplined. The second thing, I mean, you have to give the effort. So, I mean, both of those things come in hand in hand, and you're not going to win without it, especially in this conference.
Absolutely. Very well put. And with that, thank you, Coach, for coming on. And as well for the viewers, you can catch them in action this weekend in Parkville, Missouri, if you're around, or as always on the cscwildcats.com. Again, taking on Ottawa University, Morningside University, Kansas Wesleyan, and again, Ottawa University of Arizona. Those are going to be at 12 and 4 p.m. on Friday and 10 and 2 on Saturday, respectively. And again, thank you guys all for listening and supporting PodCats. Thanks also to Tyler Tomlinson, Pat Atwell, and John Shield for the information for the show. Go to cscwildcats.com for all game breakdowns and live streams. Thank you so much for coming, Coach.
Thank you.